In specific cases, Piranha pumps are also used when the static head between pump sump and discharge is zero or even negative. This is primarily because of its threading system. The pump delivers sufficient pressure for overcoming the frictional losses of the pipework and probably priming a siphon. In this short animation, we will show the behaviour of the pipework and measures of ventilation and breaking vacuum. In our first example, we will show the behaviour of an incorrect installation with no vacuum breaker. When the sump is filled up to the start level, the pump begins to operate against empty pipe. This means that the system curve has more or less no static head and also no frictional losses when the pump is starting. Further during operation, the static head gets negative by siphon effect, and the friction losses will increase as the pipe gets filled with water. When the pump stops, the water runs down the pipe and also empties the station pipework. Air is sucked in via the pump and an ugly and loud noise is created. It sounds a little bit like somebody sipping loudly coffee with a lot of air from the cup. Another effect is that the pump and the station pipe are falling dry, which may lead to restart problems. This effect is repeating with every stop of the pump. The correct way is to install a vacuum braking valve within the pumping station, which we will show next. Sulzer recommends a vacuum breaker if the static head is zero or negative. The vacuum breaker is in principle a normal non-return valve which is mounted hanging from a pipe, connected via an isolating valve to the top of the station pipework. This valve arrangement is not releasing air, only letting air in. The air is sucked in via a vacuum breaker without any ugly noise, and the station pipework always stays filled with water. The action is repeating every stop of the pump. Please bear in mind for all examples of this animation that the realistic system curve has to be checked against the pump curve, and that probably an orifice plate at the Piranha discharge flange has to be mounted in order to avoid heavy cavitation. Often these installations within negative or zero static head have one high point in between. In these cases, we also have to provide a vacuum breaker. When using a vacuum breaker in the pump sump, we may face different scenarios. In the first possible scenario, the velocity in the pipe is when stopping the pump so high that it is causing a drought and the pipe is emptied by sucking all water over the high point. In this case, is starting every time against more or less zero static head and zero frictional losses of the pipe. In the second scenario, the water in the pipe is coming to a standstill at the first moment when the pump stops. The water in the upward pipe is no longer moving. The water in the downward pipe flows slowly out as air is intruding from the end of the pipe. In this case, the system curve starts at every pump start, and the static head from the level of the sump to the high point of the pipe, and with the frictional losses for this part of the pipe. Starting from the previous scenario, it is also possible that the next pump start, the residual volume in the upwards pipe and the new pumped volume are enough to create a bigger drought and empty the entire pipe from the pumping station to the gravity sewer completely. At the next start, the pumps will experience a completely empty pipe, as in our first scenario. This explains why the pump may be alternating different performances and also different sucking in of air through the vacuum breaker. Seen from a hydraulic perspective, a vacuum breaker at the high point of the pipe is the best solution, as this will provide at least somewhat favourable system curve. However, we will find this solution rarely in the field, as a separate vacuum breaker or ventilation valve always need additional investment for housing an inspection manhole, a defrosting heater, etc., and an additional valves need separate maintenance. Here we see the first filling of the pipe. The normal pumping operation. The aeration breaking the vacuum.